This is Professor Brad Bushman, an expert and a researcher in violence and aggression. Brad is well known with over 30 years of experience in this industry. He is a professor at the University of Ohio in the United States. We invited to discuss some of the most severe and the most recent events that we unfortunately all have experienced, the psychology of violence through media.
Yeah, for sure. That's one of the impacts of exposure to violence is that it is enticing. When you're exposed to any stimulus, whether it be violence or anything else, the more you're exposed to it, the more you become to it. American events such as mass shootings, or those are much rare, you become immune to them. And that's a big problem because what that means is we think it's no big deal. But the human life is the biggest deal.
Questionally, how do you best use of that energy? Because I believe that violence, at some way, it's important to certain aspect of life, how to attack certain things, but not towards people.
Anger is a common emotion, and some people believe that it's healthy to vent it, but it's not healthy to vent your anger, to blow off steam, to hit a punching bag. That's not healthy. It's like using petrol or gasoline to put out the fire. It just feeds the flame. In the U.S., there's Carnegie Hall. It's a famous place where there's an old joke. How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. Well, how do you become an angry, aggressive person? The answer is the same. Practice, practice, practice. And when people are yelling, hitting, kicking, slamming, whatever, they're just practicing how to be more aggressively. If you want to reduce anger, you should do the opposite. And we just did a comprehensive review of many studies that have shown that activities that decrease arousal, like
I urge you, stick by and you will not be disappointed. This is an amazing show that will challenge you in how you think of aggression and how you can control and become a better person. So, do me a favor, please like and subscribe. Don't wait until the end. Just stay right now. I'm waiting. Just I believe that every human being has the ability to be violent, whether you like it or not. However, violence itself is not a negative uh, component as being. However, the negative or the positive effect of it very much depend on the the outcome result. So for this episode, I wanted to really kind of focus on I was quite interested on the exposure of violence, like prematurely, to be exposed to violence prematurely, on maybe like how the frequency of violence in terms of through media or any other aspect. Well, despite the society that we currently live in the Western society, we've underbuilt a society that's shown us from some level of violence. So to start with, my first question would be, what do we what do we know about the short term and the long term uh of psychological effect of consuming like violence from media?
Yeah, well, there's no theory that predicts that exposure to violence in the home or in the neighborhood or in the school is harmful, but exposure to violence in the media is not harmful. So, exposure to violence is harmful for in all contexts, including the media. And in terms of effects, research has shown that exposure to violence in the media increases aggressive thoughts, increases angry feelings, increases physiological arousal, such as heart rate and blood pressure, increases aggressive behavior, decreases helping behavior, and decreases feelings of empathy and compassion for others. So, those are some of the main effects of violence in the media.
Okay, so there's no any like scientific evidence that's backing through like violence increase through media or the exposure of certain type of violence?
Oh yeah, there's over 50 years of scientific evidence
Mhm.
indicating that these effects are real and robust.
Okay. In 2016, 2006, there was an article that you read. You mentioned that the same process operates when children are exposed to media or violence as when they are witness to violence through like in real life, at home or street and or among peers. So could you kind of explain how watching violence in like media affect children in a way that is similar like to real life? Because sometimes we tend to minimize the
Yeah, well, much of what we learn by observing others. And the people we observe, they could be family members, they could be friends, they could be teachers, they could be people in the neighborhood, but they could also be media characters. And the thing about media characters is most children really admire them. They look up to them. They think they're cool. They want to emulate them. They want to imitate them. And so those kind of models are especially influential on children. So, um, and also in the media, violence often pays. You know, people who use violence in the media often get what they want. And so children also learn by observing such violence that violence pays, that people who use it often get what they want. And so then they try to use it themselves.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. Um, uh, I'm pretty sure you are also aware of this, but let me know if you're comfortable on speaking on this kind of topic. However, so before we even get to that, like we're talking about violence through media, we live in a generation where what we consume is through social platforms, social media, Instagram, and all pretty much the meta um and apps. So in 2021, Meta announced or released a sensitive content control launch, which allows users to kind of tap in to make sure if they are willing to view the content that is being explored, is being promoted or uploaded on the media. In 2024, the Meta also introduced a strong protection for teenager and placing them in like a strict content setting. And in 2025, Meta released January, just very much recent January, released more speech, a few mistakes. So moving forward, they're moving towards a personalized content and especially on like a political landscape and content. So basically they're using giving power to people, however, to allow them to have control on the what content that they're viewing. So the reason why I'm asking this, people are very forgetful, right? For example, on I don't know if you have any social media app. Are you on Instagram or any of these kind of thing? So you understand how the obviously the how it works. Um, so people are very much forgetful. So what I'm leading to this, what I'm going to is we've recently witnessed the 10th of September, Charlie Kirk, who was tragically killed, unfortunately. And we've also seen a young lady, a Ukrainian 22 years old refugee who was very much young and innocent, was murdered on the train, or I believe it was in a bus. However, the content when I saw the videos, it did something into me that I couldn't really explain. Because sometimes when you're watching these movies, you're watching content on like uh, action movie or anything documentary, your brain is already wired in a certain way that you kind of build some level of shield layers to protect you. But as I saw what was circulating online, I don't know how I felt, but it was a completely different feeling than what I usually see on TV. Because looking at Kirk and then this young lady, you can see someone's life being taken away from them. It did something in my mind that I couldn't really explain it. So my question to you it would be um based on that, what can such an experience really do to people viewing this kind of um explicit content through video, considering that is very much it was very explicit.
Well, research has shown that for most people, at least for people above about age 7 or 8, that realistic violence is more impactful than fictitious violence. Very young children cannot tell the difference between reality and fantasy. But after about age 8, they can tell what's real and what's not. They can start to understand different motives for aggression. And the research shows that if it's realistic, it has a bigger impact. So the two examples you gave there are examples of realistic violence. And it makes sense that exposure to such realistic violence would have a stronger impact than exposure to fantasy violence.
Do you think that's desensitizing us as human being, or I think, or on another argument you can say, perhaps it says we've been shielded from the reality of how violent a human being really are, in if we were uncivilized to a certain point.
Yeah, for sure. That's one of the impacts of exposure to violence is that it is desensitizing. When you're exposed to any stimulus, whether it be violence or anything else, the more you're exposed to it, the more numb you become to its contents. For example, in the USA, I think so far this year, there have been almost 400 mass shootings. It's
Yes.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
And you know, Americans have become immune to mass shootings because there are so many of them.
Mm.
So when we're repeatedly exposed to violent events such as mass shootings um, or assassination attempts, those are much rare.
Mhm.
Uh, uh, in either case, we become immune to them and desensitized to them. And that's a big problem because what that means is we think it's no big deal. And when we become desensitized to something, we think it's no big deal. But the loss of human life is the biggest deal, right? This is not a trivial event. So it's really sad and unfortunate when exposure to violence in the media can lead people to trivialize the loss of human life, which is a tragedy.
I also believe the language that people are using, it's almost removing the humanity, the human side of how you view the particular person. You're no longer viewing them as a human, but as a social or particular agenda, and it removed the side, the empathy that you could have for someone, that this regardless of wherever that you politically landing, that differences are, that's what makes us human being. I'm pretty sure that we all have family members that don't necessarily agree with, but I would not dare to look at them as someone who below than what I should give them, because a human life is more important than anything else that you can think. Do you think also the language or the political um strategy that, let's say, these news outlets are using, perhaps also kind of contributing to the way that people, society is reacting to these?
For sure. That type of language is called dehumanizing language. And when we view humans as less than humans and use language like referring to them as animals or beasts or um, vermin, rats, cockroaches, you name it throughout history. Um, that's often the first step towards genocide when you describe the victims as somehow less than human. And if they're described as somehow less than human, then they must not be worthy of humane treatment. So, that dehumanizing language is very problematic.
Well, based on your experience, how do you eradicate? Because I believe in order to change a mindset of a society, it takes another generation to eradicate that. Because at least from my understanding of how society is built, because until a certain age, it's very difficult to rewire an adult's way of thinking. What do you think will be the most effective way? Because especially consider America, I live in the UK, United Kingdom, we don't have any guns, so I can't really relate in that aspect. So I consider myself as being very much blessed. I don't have to worry about being shot on the street. But what do you think will be the best strategy to maybe help people to come out of that, you know, that show their own way of thinking, or maybe dehumanizing? What would be the best strategy?
Well, you said at the beginning of this interview that people are inherently aggressive and violent, and it's true. You don't have to teach people how to behave aggressively. It comes quite naturally to them. What you have to teach them is how to inhibit their aggressive behavior, how to prevent it, how to stop it. And um, you could do that in the home. Parents can teach their children that there are better ways to solve problems than by using aggression, but also society is very helpful in preventing aggression and violence. So I think um, it's also the responsibility of a society to establish norms that it's not okay. This is not okay to hurt other people. It's not okay to refer to them as less than human. Uh, um, and as children, as we teach children those important lessons, hopefully they will also, if they have children,
Yeah.
teach their children, and um, and then eventually, hopefully, the world will become a more peaceful place.
I don't know if you're a parent or maybe you know some.
I am.
Okay, so you have boys.
Both.
Oh, you have both. So you that's the best place to be. You have an understanding of a masculine and female energy in a sense. When you are raising your boy, were you more encouraging on allowing him to express perhaps those tendencies? Because men, we have a lot of discussion that result to some level of violence. How do you?
No, the opposite.
Okay.
The opposite. Yeah, we don't. Um, it's not acceptable for uh, boys or girls
Mhm,
to use aggression and violence.
mhm,
That's not acceptable. So, for all of our children, we taught them that uh, aggression is not acceptable, and we don't use it on them. We don't
mm,
hit them, for example. So, I think you know, it's destructive to teach the lesson that it's okay for boys and men to behave aggressively, but it's not okay for girls and women to do that. It's not okay for anybody to do that. Boys, girls, men, women, it's not okay to hurt other people.
yeah. But my question would be, how do you best use of that energy? Because I believe that violence, in a some point, at some way, it's important to certain aspect of life, how to attack certain things, but not towards people. Do you know, like, I guess my question would be, how do you nourish that so you don't lose that, but to use it in the right place?
Yeah, if I understand you correctly, so anger is a common emotion, and some people believe that it's healthy to vent it, but it's not healthy to vent your anger, to blow off steam, to hit a punching bag. That's not healthy. It's like using petrol or gasoline to put out a fire. It just feeds the flame. You know, in the US, there's maybe Carnegie Hall. It's a famous place where musicians perform. There's an old joke. How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. Well, how do you become an angry, aggressive person? The answer is the same: practice, practice, practice. And when people vent their anger by yelling, hitting, kicking, slamming doors, whatever, they're just practicing how to behave more aggressively. Um, anger is anger can anger makes people feel powerful, and it can motivate them to stand up for what they think is just. So, for example, almost every movement in society, uh, Black Lives Matter, LGBTQ, women's movements, all of them have been fueled by anger. And when people are angry, they want to take action. They want to make things right. So, so anger can make people feel powerful. It's not necessarily a negative emotion, but it's important not to use anger as fuel to harm other people.
That's a very interesting take because I'm when my whole mindset or my whole worldview of venting is being promoted as a very positive act of allowing
It's
it.
not.
Okay, when
The scientific evidence does not support that at all.
wow, so the opposite take place. It actually increases the more that you take in.
Yeah, and things like when angry people are highly aroused, their heart rate increases, their blood pressure increases, and when they vent, they just keep the arousal high. That's why it's like using petrol to put out a fire. So it's if you want to reduce anger, you should do the opposite. And we just did a comprehensive review of many studies that have shown that activities that decrease arousal, like breathing, muscle relaxation, mindfulness, meditation, yoga, all of those activities are very effective at reducing anger and aggression.
Wow, that's and my whole brain is just it just flipped upside down with that statement.
That's why we need science. We can't rely on gut feelings, hunches, intuition, common sense to make sense of our world. We need science. We need research. We need studies to test what works and what doesn't work. And hundreds of scientific studies have shown that activities that decrease arousal work. They reduce anger, they reduce aggression. Whereas people think, oh, I get angry, I'll just go for a jog or hit a punching bag. Like that's the, or they go to these rage rooms where they wear this protective gear and they give you a baseball bat and they start breaking all these objects, right? That's like that's like the worst thing you can do.
Why do you think this research has not been um promoted to the just society or to the market? Why is that? Because I'm actually not familiar with I've never actually heard of this study at all.
Yeah, well, I'll be happy to send it to you. It's actually a comprehensive review of many, many studies. Um, but the problem with venting is it feels good. Like when people vent their anger, like if you go in a rage room and somebody gives you a baseball bat and you just start breaking stuff, and you ask these people after, "How do you feel?" They'll say, I feel great. And in our own scientific studies, about 75% of participants say after they vent by pounding on a punching bag, they feel better, right? But just because you feel good, that doesn't mean it's healthy. People feel good after taking street drugs. They feel good after eating hamburgers and chocolate or whatever. Like the fact that you feel good does not mean it's healthy. And in fact, our research has shown that this good feeling actually reinforces aggressive behavior. So people vent, they feel good, so they vent more and they behave more and more aggressively because this good feeling just reinforces the aggressive behavior.
Because as you're feeding it, as more is demanding, and to a point that you can't contain and express it to a point that is can affect another person.
Um, well, if you vent, you feel good. And we know that any activity that makes you feel good, you're more likely to repeat it,
Mhm.
right? Um, so when people vent their anger, they feel better after, so they're more likely to repeat it. They're more likely to continue to vent. That's why people do it, because it feels good. Not not because it works. It doesn't work, but it feels good. And much of what we do in life, we do because it feels good.
Exceptional. Thank you for that. That's very educational.
Sure.
I love that I had to learn that. Um, what is behavior script, and how does this process make children more likely to act aggressively, to accept violence as a normal or normal?
Yeah, well, in a movie, a script tells an actor or an actress what to say, what to do.
Mhm.
Uh, but in memory, we retrieve scripts that tell us what to say and what to do, and we get those scripts by observing other people, including characters in the mass media. And if we encounter a similar situation, we search our memory for a script about how to behave. We're not sure what to do, so we search our memory. Have I seen anything like this before? Oh, yeah, I saw it on this show, and it worked. So we retrieve that script and we put ourselves as the actor or actress in that script, and
Yes.
we behave according to that script. And if it works for us, then we code that in memory. And the next time it happens, we're more likely to retrieve the same script and behave according to that script.
Going back to what happened to Charlie Kirk, are which every time I think about it, I really started. But the scene what took place really reminds me a lot of the movies that we watch of snipers and someone trying to assassinate, attempt murder, things like that. And do you think movies, I don't know, the market, do you think movies like that negatively impacts people in a
For
sense?
sure. For sure. There's hundreds of studies conducted over at least 5 decades that have shown that.
Mhm. But there tend to be a lot of argument that from the industry, from the movie industry. However, well, in the UK, there was a particular law that was raised, or maybe the government, the UK government, was targeting a lot of drone artists, which I mean like rappers that speak a lot violent, which I completely understand, but they were targeting them because of the music we're releasing will incentivize some sorts of a behavior, which I understand, completely understand. But then opposite was happening with the movie. A lot of argument was being made that the movie, what you see in movie, does not necessarily impact you because your brain does not process it as a real life event. But what you're saying is that those statements are not necessarily true.
They're false.
Wow.
Yeah.
And when was this proven otherwise?
Well, uh, decades ago, like in 1972, the US Surgeon General issued a warning about it. So, that was over 50 years ago. So,
Okay. So the agenda, I believe, then if that's the case, we already have data that's proving that's not true. So
Yeah,
the only thing that I can rely on believing that maybe these industry are investing some level of money or whatsoever to disguise to make sure that these information are not particularly targeting them, or because they're
for
targeting
sure.
them otherwise.
It's like relying on the tobacco industry to tell you if smoking is harmful for your health.
Absolutely, you're right. Okay. And if you notice your child is showcasing some level of developing some level of aggression, violence behavior, how do you manage that from how do you deal with that for someone who might not be able to not know how to deal with that as a first case?
Well, you try to model nonviolent behavior yourself, and then you try to teach children uh, to behave in a nonviolent way themselves. So I think it's really important for parents and also for society to teach children that it's not okay. It's not okay to hurt people, right? We're all part of the human family. And we need to teach every person on this planet is a human being that deserves respect from us, and it's not okay to hurt them. E- Even if we don't like them, it's not okay to hurt them.
Amazing. And wow, this interview took a completely different turn journey that I expected, but I'm actually loving it because I've learned a lot. And then with that being said, so with the development of social media and then how easily we are accessing these videos, do you believe that these are one of the things? Because I can believe the level of violence is continuously increasing. That is actually fueling these behavior.
For sure. Yeah.
And what policy do you think will be good to be implemented in terms of to help reduce some level of that?
Well, I think education is the first step, and I thank you for having these podcasts to try to inform your viewers of what the scientific evidence indicates. So, I think the first step is education for people to learn what works and what doesn't work. And then the next step is to teach children what the scientific research and evidence shows on this topic, which is that exposure to violence in the media increases aggression and desensitizes people to the pain and suffering of others. And neither one of those outcomes is good. We don't want that in our we don't want to live in a society like that.
Mhm. Well, that's been an amazing interview, and I really appreciate how this is.
Can I read you the take home message on my web page?
Yeah, of course. Yes, that'll be great.
Yeah. It's yeah, it's just a few sentences. Um, After doing research on aggression and violence for over 30 years, I have concluded that the most harmful belief people can have is the belief that they are superior to others. For example, their religion, race or ethnicity, gender or gender identity, sexual orientation, political party or ideology, school, city, state, country, etc., is the best. This feeling of superiority can lead to mistreatment of others, which hurts society as a whole. Every person on this planet is part of the human family. No person is superior to any other person. So that's like the take home message of my career. 30 years of research boiled down into a paragraph. It is what I have to say to the world.
But you know what? I love what you just said. But I was quite interested with the religion aspect. Obviously, I have a Christian background. The way the Christian faith is shaped shit is that no one is perfect, no one is good, that we are all, in a lack of better term, sinners and we receive grace, that we are all equal. No one's beyond another. That's why even the message of Jesus, although you might not be a believer, the message of Jesus is pretty much that even the religious folks, the religious people who were enforcing some sort of violence to people that did not necessarily apply the law at the time. That's why I loved what you said, because we've biblically, no one is perfect, no one is good. We are all equal in the eyes of God. But that's why personally I subscribe to that the Christian religion, not religion, but the Christian faith, if you understand the concept in itself. But I strongly agree with you when we're start to look at other people that aren't, we can disagree with with a lot of things. I don't think disagreement is a bad thing. I actually think it's really healthy. You can disagree with someone, but at the end of the day, still love them and see them as human beings. Once you remove those way of viewing them, therefore that's what leads to chaos and destruction, killing. So that's, I think that's been the most beautiful part of your career, I believe.
Thanks.
So anything else that you want to tell us, or what you're working on to keep up, to keep make sure to keep up with, to watch maybe, well, book you're releasing?
Uh, right now, I'm working on a project on mass shootings. I think I mentioned earlier that there have been about 400 of them already in 2025 alone. And so we're trying to identify what are the risk factors for mass shootings and the protective factors for mass shootings. So that's my current research project.
That's absolutely amazing. And when you finish, it'll be amazing if you're willing to share with us some of your research.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'd love to reach back to you whenever. When do you think that will probably finish?
Uh, yeah, hopefully by the end of the year.
Okay. Oh wow, I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm yet to come in America and then enjoy some pizza and then some fast food. And have you been to
Me too.
been to UK before?
Yes, yes, I love it.
Ah, well, thank you very much, sir. And I really
You.
appreciate your time. And I'm looking forward to speak to you soon.